producers and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, here with a very long overdue review roundup episode for you all this week. I sincerely apologize for my delay with my review roundup episodes this week. This summer actually, I would say. It's been a busy summer with, life and moving and then family stuff, and of course doing the main episodes of the podcast. As you already know, thanks to you all, we're growing more and more every week, so thank you all for the support. But I've been very behind on my review roundups for you all this summer. I feel like my last review roundup was about a month and a half ago, like early July, with The Bear season 3, as well as A Quiet Place day 1. So please forgive me, as I've been so behind with my review roundup episodes for you all this summer, but have no fear, I am back with a triple feature. Bear with me, a triple feature review roundup episode for you all this week. I have M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. I have the new neon horror thriller CUCKOO, as well as I just saw Lionsgate's the remake of The Crow. So I have a lot of movies to review for you all on the podcast right now. I will say there's going to be a lot of interesting opinions and takes on this week's review roundup episode. Again, it's been a summer of I think it's been a great summer of movies, if you ask me. I think last year was okay. I think last year we had some hits. Obviously, the big ones were Barbie and Oppenheimer. But I think this summer has been proven, there's been more hits, I feel like, this summer than last year. I think even more than 2022. I think 2022 we had just Top Gun Maverick, really. And I would say Nope, but I think the summer was awesome with movies. I really, with Deadpool and Wolverine, from Twisters to Bad Boys for Life, with Inside Out 2. I mean, list goes on and on. Not even The Fall Guy, which me and Nick just adored and loved. I think this was a great year for summer for movies. I really do. I think the year is going really strong in terms of movies, but the summer really kicked ass in terms of box office and movies. So I'm really happy with what we got this summer. Some winners and some not so winners, I'll say. But yeah, I have a lot to review for you all on this week's episode. But as always, guys, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, as well as a full audio show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Coming soon, we hope to have the video element of the podcast running. Again, bear with us. Hopefully September, if not early October. Me and Nick are doing on the camera test, our screen test, as you say, in the film industry and TV industry. Definitely working that out with the kinks of how to do video editing, stuff like that. So bear with us. We should have that up and going. I should say, hopefully by September, if not October. So look out for that. And again, a lot more things on the pipeline for the podcast. Again, we have a full fall of movies. Listen to our fall preview for movies on, I think it was 2 weeks ago. But yeah, guys, again, the summer was awesome. Thanks to you all. We had a lot of good coverage for press opportunities and more screenings. But again, we do need your help getting to 200 ratings on Apple Podcasts. Keep on following the show. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, wherever, Amazon, Pandora, iHeartRadio. But YouTube, our YouTube has been growing very rapidly, which is awesome if you ask me. So thank you all. And again, we know you love our Expendables 4 reaction for some reason, because again, we're about to hit 100,000 on that video, which is, again, if you told me and Nick about a year ago that our biggest video, either Moses, Joel, myself, or Nick, you would have been like, was that Expendables 4? No way. But some reason that video helps us grow the podcast and the channel. So thank you all for keep on watching, I should say. That's the right word. But seriously, thank you all for the support, and it's the ongoing love. It truly means the world to us. So thank you all for listening to us ramble and our love for all things TV and movies. It truly means the world to us, and it all warms our heart. But on with the review roundup episode of this week. Like I said, I have 3. Again, bear with me. A triple feature of reviews. Let's start with The Crow. I just got out of seeing this maybe half an hour ago. Okay, so The Crow. I've only seen the original with Brandon Lee. I think it was me, Moses, Nick, and myself. We were freshmen in film school at ASU, and I believe Moses and I were in the same sex and violence class, and we watched The Crow. And I knew a little bit of how it was a very beloved movie, bit of a cult classic, I would say. But obviously, the awful tragedy, what happened to Brandon Lee on set when the gun was supposed to be a prop gun, actually was loaded and unfortunately and then killed Brandon Lee. But I feel like there's been a lot of love around that movie because of that. But also, I think it's a very beloved movie for other reasons. So I only saw the movie once, and I couldn't really remember it for the most part. I remember having a discussion with my professor in that lecture about what happened and the importance of safety and gun control on movies, obviously. And obviously we had a similar situation a couple years ago with Alec Baldwin and the cinematographer, which I'm blanking on her name, forgive me. But so it it's happened more than once, unfortunately. I think even on Deadpool 2, there was a stunt accident. So, unfortunately, it's happened quite a bit in film and TV. But I remember watching The Crow. I think I remember liking it, but for love of me, I just can't remember most of the movie. And I know this movie's been in development, this remake has been in development hell for years, whether it's Bradley Cooper star, as Nick said last week, Jason Momoa at one point was attached. And a lot of different filmmakers kind of came and left, and then you got the ball rolling with Bill Skarsgård, and then Rupert Sanders directing this movie, and then kind of went from there. And I'm not someone who is up in arms when they're like, "Who's remaking this movie?" You'll ask me. I was optimistic about remakes and reboots. I'm kind of the one usually on the fence of like, we'll see. And sometimes it works, sometimes it kind of goes, this was not needed or not made for any kind of out of love or respect for the existing or previous film or show. So I didn't have any expectations. I remember when the first image came out a couple months ago, like let's say April or May, of Skarsgård and like the makeup and the tattoos. People were like, "What the hell is this? What is this? David Ayer's Joker from Suicide Squad?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a big fan of that movie actually. I want to see his director's cut." But again, I didn't really have a problem with it. But I remember Joelle, who's a big Crow fan, was like, "Oh hell no, this is not the Crow." And I'm like, "All right, well, gotta give it a chance, whatever." And I remember the trailer came out, and I was like, the trailer wasn't terrible. I think both Nick and myself were like, the trailer wasn't terrible. And people were like, "Oh, fuck this movie. This trailer's this is ruining it." And I was like, well, again, being not a huge fan, again, not being, I would say, a fan of the movie. Again, I saw it once, didn't remember as much, but again, try to rewatch it now after seeing this. I thought the music was pretty cool with the Post Malone, Travis Scott, Ozzy Osbourne track, which again, great album from Hollywood's Bleeding by Post Malone. Like the music, like the visuals. I'm like, I'll give this movie a chance. And I think what happened was, I think we got an invite to the screening of the movie. Like, I think it was supposed to come out early June, like around like Bad Boys, Ride or Die. I think a week before Inside Out 2. And I remember talking to like people in the industry, people related to like, to the film, whatever, and also our amazing publicist, Lee. And I remember in the newsletter, in the email was like, "Yeah, the movie's coming out in June." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I believe a week, I could be wrong, I think a week or maybe 2 weeks before the movie came out, they go, "No, we're pushing it back to August." And I was like, "Ew, not a good sign." I think whenever a movie gets pushed back so close to its release date, never a good sign, but also it was a 2.5 month push. And I'm like, also not a good sign. I think for the most part, there are some times where movies get pushed back for reasons. I think The Fall Guy got pushed back because Dune 2 was coming out, so it makes sense. Unfortunately, The Fall Guy did not do well opening weekend or the box office. Again, we still love that movie, but it was still a good movie. So well received by critics and audiences. But for the most part, whenever a movie gets pushed back that so close to its release date, and also just that far back, never really a good sign, I would say, for the most part. But optimistic. And of course, last week when the Rotten Tomatoes score got revealed, day the movie came out, which never a good sign. Like you look at Borderlands and other movies, Madam Web and Morbius, it was like 9%. I want to say on Rotten Tomatoes. I think right now it's at, bear with me, I think it's at now 19. But I texted Nick and me and him were like, "Yeah, that's not good." And I was like, I mean, we kind of knew something was up. I was kind of hoping like it could be a surprise, but I'm like, again, I dug the trailers a lot. Okay, now it's 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, so not the best, but audience score 65. Wow, that's better than the audience, but nevertheless, saw it. And also there was no press screening for it, so never a good sign too. So I saw it today at my local Regal, had the limited pass, so I'm gonna go see it today. Right off, this movie's not good. Would I call it a disaster? No. Worst movie ever made? No. Worst movie of the year? I haven't seen Borderlands, so I would still give that to Madam Web for the most part. I did not like Civil War at all. I just couldn't stand that movie for some reason. I always put this probably up there with how I felt about Civil War. This movie's not, I mean, I saw it, so you don't have to see this movie. Part of our, being a podcaster, being, a critic and reviewer. This movie's not good. It's just, it's very dull. It's very uneven. It's very rushed. And I knew right away when the movie started, I was like, oh, it's one of these movies where the editing was so frantic and very weird and very odd. You're just like, wait, what's going on now? It's just that its movie is a mess from the beginning to the end. As you can tell, this movie really has, I would say, to not be funny or anything, but has no soul, which is all about the movie, soul for soul, about, afterlife, whatever. this movie just has a really big issue of why is this movie being made, who's doing this movie, what's the purpose of this film, and the whole time I'm like, yeah, why was this movie made in the first place? I will say, you know what, starting off with the good I have of this movie, which is not a lot. Bill Skarsgård, who I really admire as an actor, I think I've been really fascinated by him ever since I saw him as Pennywise, and I thought he just was terrifying, but so captured, so in a way magical on screen with Pennywise. Like, he was so just like eerie and creepy, but you couldn't keep your eyes off him. He was like, wow, the way he's playing this fucked up monster, this kid eating is like really this evil kid person eating monster. You're like, oh my god! But you just were captivated by his performance. You're like, how's he doing this? It's so creepy. It's like the voice is so weird. That thing he did with his eye is so weird. But it was an amazing performance. I thought was very overlooked that year in terms of the Oscars and award season. I'm like, wow, he was so good. And he's been good things like, Deadpool 2 for his small role. I'm trying to think. Other films I've seen him in that was like, oh wow, he was really good. I've seen more of his brother recently than I think I've seen of Bill. But obviously he was great in John Wick. Oh, he was, again, John Wick 4, I thought he was awesome. And I thought in Barbarian, he was really good for the role he was in. So I've seen him in good things where I'm like, wow, this dude can act. I heard Boy Kills World is a very particular taste of film. But again, I think I've been a fan of this guy ever since I've seen him. Again, I think he was good in Atomic Blonde. I've seen things where I'm like, wow, this guy's a good actor. Again, family of actors, obviously, the whole Skarsgård family is talented actors. And I was like, okay, I had faith in this movie because I'm like, oh, wow, he is a good actor. So let me just kind of like go with it. He's really trying to save this movie as much as he can. Like, he really is. And, I give him all the props in the world to like just try to save the material and try to just like, you can tell he's a fan of the original Crow and trying to like do this movie justice and legacy justice. And he's really, really trying. But it's not working. The script with him is not working. And but there's times where like you can tell like he's putting his all into this movie, like he's really acting his ass off, but the movie is just so bland and so disappointing. You're like you're hurting this man's not career, but like you're kind of just like, this man's trying to give him his all in his performance, but the movie is just it's holding him back in so many ways. And even though he's kind of this, it's not I would say scene to scene or copy to copy remake of the original, but they're trying to reimagine it, and I say in a more modern sense in this movie. But no matter how hard he tries, it's just not working. And you want to root for him, you want to root for Skarsgård as an actor and a performer, but this movie really has no direction, no just kind of like no love and no just like support behind it. Where it's like he's just trying, but it's just not working. And again, I think that if maybe a better script, maybe a better director involved, could have been maybe a better movie, because again, you have a great performer right there. It's like, come on, man, let's go. You have a Skarsgård, come on, he can do it. But it's just like, it's movie just so it hurts him in a way. I thought the score, for what it's worth, the score I thought was really good. It was really upbeat, very, that's like techno electric to it. It had a little bit of kind of like the Matrix sound, scored a little bit. Thought was really cool score where it kind of uplifts the character of the scenes, whatever. And I think the score at times was better than the actual movie, because you're like, wow, the score is so good, but it's wasted on a really bad movie. And again, I think when there's good cinematography, there's good production design, when there's good score, whatever, we've seen so many times where like those other elements work so much better than the actual film and story. And there are some cool visuals. There are also pretty cool visual, some kind of like imagery here and there. One cool like stuff with the afterlife and kind of like the crow, what it means, the purpose of the crow, basically. And the violence at the very end is pretty cool. It's very John Wick-esque. And I thought that, wow, if this movie could have been made by like Chad Stahelski, who did the John Wick movies, way better movie. I think the guy who wrote this or wrote the recent draft was Zach Balan, who wrote, again, Creed 3, great movie, King Richard, great movie, Gran Turismo, I thought was awesome. He also wrote something recently. Bob Marley, One Love, I thought was kind of disappointing, but still good writer right there, and some in other projects from his. But you're just like, oh man, like it's not working. It's like trying to throw more things at it. It's like this isn't working. It just has to work as a unit altogether to make this movie kind of special and unique. But like I said, there are cool visuals, but the violence I do like at the end. But again, it's at the end, and this movie's very rushed. It's very uneven. Like I said, it's very dull. And the chemistry between FKA Twigs and Bill Skarsgård is non-existent. Like, I did not believe their love story at all. The whole time I'm like, they're supposed to be in love. I couldn't. It was like this. They were on 2 different movies. Like, they just didn't know how to, like, show love and show really kind of like lovable emotion. Like, I felt like it was very, again, very stale and very dull. Where I'm like, we can't believe your love story, with the whole movie's about love story and revenge, and love never dies. Could have fooled me, because the whole time I'm like, they're supposed to be in love. Prove it. And the whole movie never proven once why this love story is real, or why we believe they're in love. These are lovers for life, or why they're real true love. It's like, could have fooled me, because the whole time I'm like, it was like almost like kind of being like a really bad screen test throughout the movie, and I'm like, oh boy. And I feel like FKA Twigs, I've only seen her in Honey Boy. I'll be honest, not the best actor. And I thought at the beginning her accent was like gone, and then it came back right away. And I'm like, what now? Like, you didn't have an accent, now you have an accent. It's like, and again, I feel like she's just trying really hard, and it's just not working. And whenever they're on screen together, you're just like, I don't believe this. This is so unbelievable, and it's so unrealistic. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like they just were like, all right, options. We'll get these two together. Go for it. I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like it just the writing for her was also pretty bad, but her performance is very boring and just very, and also uneven. Danny Houston is Danny Houston in this. Like, he's playing his typical villain, type of like, oh yes, like, trust me, I'm bad, and this is why people should sacrifice for this reason. I'm like, dude, you've been doing the same stick since X-Men Origins to Wolverine. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, it just you see the same same thing from him over and over again. I'm trying to think of, like, again, yeah, definitely Wonder Woman. Even in Game Night for a small role. Again, like I said, it's X-Men Origins Wolverine. I haven't seen Horizon Part 1, except for Moses. He saw it. I bet you probably the same thing. Like, Angel and yeah, see, whenever I see him in a movie, he's playing as kind of this typical, like, I must talk like this because I am the villain, and I have a purpose because of this, and this is why. I'm like, dude, you really playing the same guy in every movie. Like, come on, man, show some range. I know you have it, but what's going on here? But the whole time I'm like, dude, like, you're just a very not menacing villain, because I've seen you as villain the past 20 years of my life. So bring something new to the table, or bring some kind of emotion and depth to it. And again, when this is not a spoiler, but really as a villain, he's just so one-dimensional, and it's so very just like boring to watch. And I don't know, I feel like this movie really could have been a better version of a remake, or a better remake that we've seen in the past couple of years, if it had better people involved. I would keep Skarsgård. I would keep Skarsgård involved for sure. Have Stileski direct this movie. I had a better writing team on board, many different writers. But I think, I told this to Nick last week too. I think this movie was cursed from the beginning. I hate using the word cursed, but I feel like ever since the tragic passing of Brendan Lee, this movie has been this whole universe and franchise have been kind of cursed because of that. I think no one has liked the sequels. When this movie was announced and been in development hell for 20, 30 years, it just like this. It was a sign that this movie should not have been made. And I agree now. I think this movie should not have been made, or if it was, had a better creative team involved, because there's no love or passion behind this movie. Again, I hate saying that, because again, I think Skarsgård really cared about this movie, cared about the material, and probably definitely a fan of the original. But man, there's really no love for this movie, if you ask me. And Rupert Sanders, listen, I don't know the guy personally. I haven't been impressed with his filmography, whether it's Snow White and the Huntsman and Ghost in the Shell remake a couple years ago. I like Ghost in the Shell for the visuals and for the score, but then Blade Runner 2049 came out a few months later. I'm like, this is a way better movie. Like, comparing the two, I wasn't a fan of the anime, so I know the anime probably is way 1,000 times better, don't get me wrong. But just there's no one really involved in this movie that I was like, oh, I'm definitely like, it's trying to like, do this story, do this material justice. And the whole movie, you're just like, man, this is just a boring movie. And again, I did like the last act with like the violent kind of like revenge part of it. But again, the whole movie is just like, it's just rushed and it's so uneven. You're just like, what do you want to tell? Like, what is the purpose of this story? Why are we rooting for Eric? Why are we rooting for this love story? And I don't think anyone involved could tell me this movie, because it's like you're just kind of like not ruining, but I think you're kind of hurting the legacy of the original film. And after seeing, like I said, after seeing this, I for sure don't watch the original now, and probably like a thousand times more than I did a couple years ago, and probably like the movie, the original, way more than this current one. Yeah, this is not a good movie. It's disappointing. Again, I don't like leaving a movie feeling like, oh man, like come on. But this time, I definitely did. And there were some very, very weird edits in this movie. Like I've seen a lot of movies this past year, all my life, but this past year especially. And I noticed editing a lot more than I probably have in the recent years. There's some weird editing. Like there's some edits where like there's a scene where people are just walking upstairs and someone just hits a guy and takes his towel. No reason, just happens. Or there's a shot where people are sitting down and this one girl gives them the tongue. That's it. Scene. And I'm like, wait. There was times where I was laughing how bad the editing was, and I am no editor. Well, I edit the podcast audio, so I'm a little bit of an editor, but in terms of actual big budget filmmaking and video editing, I'm not that whatsoever. I admire all my editing friends, people who are edit for profession. It's a very magic art of itself. But man, oh man, there's some choppy editing this. You're like, who approved it? This is some really like entry level student film, like film school type of editing. You're like, yo, this is not looking good. And it was so choppy. It was so like quick, okay, cut this, and I'm like, yo, slow down. Let's just bring it all together. Maybe revise. To me, this felt like a first cut of a film, a first draft of a script, a first cut of a film, and watching two actors their on-screen camera test for this movie. I felt that way the entire movie, where I'm like, wow, this is not good at all. And there's some really poor acting and dialogue from everyone else but Skarsgård, and you're just like, wait, what? And you could tell like they're kind of phoning it in, like, hey, this is a check. Like, you know what? I'm gonna pay for my mortgage next month. I'm gonna pay for my groceries. Put my kid through school. More power to you. Get your money. Get your hustle on. Get your grind on. But yeah, there's no love for this movie whatsoever. And the whole time I'm like, wow, you can tell. Because again, if filmmakers and people make a film or a show that don't care about it, why should we care about it? Passion speaks volumes. Passion and love for material speaks volumes. What we say in the podcast, we want to see people, again, if someone's doing a Spider-Man movie, why? Well, XYZ, and explain it. You're doing movie about a book. Why doing this movie about a book? I love the book because it moved me. Okay, tell me why you're a fan of this. Tell me why you're a fan of this material. I just don't think, other than Skarsgård, no one really cared about this material enough to be like, you know what? I got it. This is my vision. And again, I don't think Sanders is a good filmmaker or the right filmmaker to do this movie. I think he maybe could have done a few more movies first and then go back to this. But his current track record and box office, I mean, not proven really a winner. So this could have been a really interesting remake, or it could be one of the better remakes if you ask me. But man, oh man, this was just a bummer of a movie. I'm giving this out of 10. I want to say give it a 2. Yeah, maybe a 2.5 out of 10. Yeah, I feel like I did like his performance. I did like the music a lot, and there were some really cool visuals. Like, oh, this is really cool. That worked for me. But the overall movie, just like, man, what could have been? Yeah, 2.5 out of 10. This is, again, I would not recommend this movie to anyone right now. I mean, if you're a diehard fan of the Crow comic and the mythology, okay. I mean, there was only 2 people in the theater besides me, so 3 of us. I think one guy left halfway through, and I'm like, oh, well, there he goes. And I don't like walking out of movies. I did it once with Joel years ago for Chirac, but personal reasons why. But yeah, this is just a mess, and it's a bummer that we're ending the movie season like this. I think Blink Twice is a great movie. That movie also did not do well this weekend, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, I get it why they pushed it back 2 months and then showed it to us press. So, it's a bummer. It really could have been a special kind of remake or love letter to the original film and love letter to Brandon Lee. But man, it's just, there's some very weird edits. There's some very, very weird imagery where I'm like, wait, what? Hold up now. I just like, again, it's a very soulless movie. It's a soulless remake, but again, there's like the acting in this is really atrocious where I'm like, wow, it reminded me watching Thanksgiving last year. Again, if you heard my review last year, I couldn't stand Thanksgiving. People love that movie. I was like, what are you watching? I mean, again, but to be fair, all film is subjective. If you liked it, more power to you, respect. But for me, I was so like just like flabbergasted at this movie that was so beloved and good reviews, where I was like, are we seeing two different movies? But with this, it's just, man, what a mess. So yeah, like I said, if you are a fan of this franchise, you just love this franchise, so you love this comic and lore mythology so much, I don't know, do you want to go see it? But I think it's worth watching at home. It's worth skipping if you guys can just watch the original at this point. So yeah, that's that. All right, moving on is, let's see, I'll start with Trap. So if you don't know Trap is the new M. Night Shyamalan. I've been doing pretty bad with my reading the synopsis and kind of like the plot of these movies. Basically, Trap follows a father and his teen daughter attend a pop concert only to realize they've entered the center of a dark and sinister event. I would say, like most people, M. Night Shyamalan, hit or miss. I love Split. I love Unbreakable. I like, what's the one he did? Sixth Sense obviously is a classic, but was spoiled for me because of 50 First Date. So thank you, Adam Sandler. Just kidding. Old was fine. Knock at the Cabin was pretty good. I thought it was a good character piece, good performances from Batista, Jonathan Groff, and I forgot the other guy's name who played his husband. That was pretty good because I thought it was more of a quote unquote mature film for M. Night that was more like character based. And I loved how it kind of kept you really really uneasy and really kind of whole like, oh my gosh, like what's gonna happen? Are they telling the truth? Whatever. But Old Glass to me was a huge disappointment. Happening is a joke of a movie if you're asking me. But hit or miss. So with Trap, I was so intrigued by the trailer when it came out from CinemaCon a couple of months ago, and I was like, ooh, like it's an original film. I'm like, ooh, what could it be? And I thought it was very interesting, and spoilers for the trailer, is that it was revealed that the whole trailer was like, oh my gosh, at a concert, and they go, guess what? This whole thing is a trap because of I forgot the name of the serial killer. It's like, yeah, like him. Whole concert's a trap. Get him. So if you're here, you're part of this trap now. It's like, oh, like who can it be? And at the end of the trailer, it showed that Josh Hartnett is the killer. I was like, wow, interesting that they're showing that in the trailer. And I thought, I was like, huh, okay, that's a very interesting way to capture an audience, but also tell your audience, like, guess what? Look at this. And I thought, I was like, this could be either a very smart move on M. Night's part, or also could be, not so great on his behalf. Another thing, this movie had an embargo that came out on the day the movie was released. Never a good sign. And I heard another podcast with a few other publicists and a few other reviewers like, oh, the reason why, guys, you know why the reason why? The twist in this is his biggest yet. And when I heard that I think it was a week before the movie came out, I was like, ooh, okay. Got me sold now. Like, the trailer was a lot. I was like, okay, here we go. And I was like, all right, here we go. I'll tell you that was a bold-faced lie. That was a lie. Because I walked out, I was like, where was the twist? That was supposed to be the biggest ever of his career. Where was it? Because I didn't see a damn thing. Also, like I say, this movie was also a disappointment for me. Again, starting off with the good again, I'll say this. Josh Hartnett in this is really good. Kind of like The Crow, the main actor is really trying their best to save this movie. It's the August of main actors trying to save their movie that they're in and bring something special to it as much as they can, as hard as they can, because they're really trying to savage like this movie. I will say I definitely had a better time watching Trap than I did with The Crow by miles, if you ask me. But I think Trap, the first half hour, is great. It was very classic M. Night. I thought the way he kind of played with music and expectations, it was very Hitchcock of him. And I was like, ooh, he's kind of going back to his kind of roots of like Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, kind of reeling you in. Like, come on, look at the keys, like, come come with me now. Like, let's do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Basically, this movie is definitely Silence of the Lambs, but you put it at Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour. Straight up. And when I heard that was the pitch I think he gave to the studios, I'm like, ooh, that's pretty cool. I like that. That's pretty good. And I think the first half hour when you're at the concert, you're like, oh, all right, this is good. Like, I was kind of tense. I was kind of uncomfortable at times. I was like, but I was so intrigued of like his storytelling. I was like, oh, okay, where we going with this? Okay. I thought his daughter, who I'm blanking on her name right now as well, Edna's actual daughter, who plays the Taylor Swift-esque pop star in this, Salika Shyamalan, thought was very good. I think very good as a you definitely believe her as a pop star, but also as a good actress. And I was like, ooh, I like how she kind of like playing to this kind of like pop star, ego pop star kind of like idol, like who she is, whatever. But Josh Hartnett did some things you're just like, dude, what are you doing? But there's so many things you're just like, wait a second, hold up now. That doesn't make sense. Like, there were so many things that, like, laughable, that like so many things that he was doing that like you would be like, no one saw that, really. He's in a room of SWAT people and no one saw him take walkie-talkie and some stuff, like, in a room full of SWAT people. No one saw that. And he was doing something all in the trailer, by the way, non-spoiler. And your whole time you're like, wait, what? Or he does this to a certain fellow concert goer, or an employee working at the venue. It's like, wait, no one's seeing this. Like, come on, it was too easy for him. And I'm like, no, someone would have been like, hey, I saw you do that. Like, come on now. Like, we're doing, come on. I saw you push this person over. I saw you do this to this person. It's like, in a Eras Tour-esque packed sold out concert, no one saw him do these awful things. Really? I found that very hard to believe. But you do kind of follow this like cat and mouse like thing with like the FBI. I believe the FBI director, or the person they brought in, who she was like a doctor that kind of understands serial killers basically, or understands kind of like motives of certain insane people basically. And that was pretty cool because she's getting closer and closer to him, but she's never quite there throughout most of the movie. You're like, oh, okay, like it's kind of like very Hannibal Lecter-esque with Jodie Foster and Silence of the Lambs, like, or even Ray Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman in Seven. Like, oh, okay, I'm getting close, but how close can I get to you before before I capture you, basically? I'm like, okay. But I do think that once the movie leaves the concert, it's so unoriginal, it's so predictable, and again, it's so like, what? Come on, like that makes no sense. And again, I feel like if the movie was set the entire time at the concert, would have been a better movie. And I'm still debating that, like, maybe if he didn't reveal like he was the killer in the trailer, could have been a better movie too. Again, that's a bit of a reach. I feel like the audience might have been like, wait, is he the killer? So that could have been like, oh, too easy of a guess, of a twist, whatever. But I just feel like the way M. Night builds his tension and builds kind of just like the uneasiness, and you're rooting in. Josh Hartnett plays this really despicable, sinister killer, but you're also rooting for him to kind of like escape and get out of this concert without being arrested. You're like, I'm rooting for this killer because he's very charming. He's also very kind of likable. He's like kind of dorky dad or whatever. Like, okay, he's one of these guys, and you're like, what? Why am I rooting for a serial killer? Like, what? But again, I give M. Night props for his writing direction for Hartnett, but also Hartnett is really acting his ass off. Again, I think he's a good actor. I think it's cool seeing his kind of Josh Hartnett kind of renaissance, whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, like he's like, this guy's an awful shitbag, but you kind of want to see him get away. Like, oh, see ya. But once a concert takes a direction outside the venue and leaves the concert, you're just like, oh, what? It's M. Night kind of goes in his little own like world of like, look at this kind of like weird thing. It's like with the characters, I'm like, wait, what now? And again, the whole time I'm like, oh man. And I give him props that he doesn't really show too much of the movie in the trailers outside of the concert scenes. It was very smart marketing on his behalf, but it's just the second half is just so plain and boring and typical M. Night. You're just like, okay, this is so predictable and this is very just like not really fascinating anymore. and it takes a turn where it's like, okay, and the movie feels like it's ending. Nope, 20 more minutes, and I'm like, what? Wait, what? It just ended. Nope, 20 more minutes, and then more things happen, and you're just like, oh, come on. You're like, what? And it's really weird scene at the end where he's like shirtless, and I'm just like, okay, this is just weird. And I was checked out. I was like, man, you had me in the first half, you got me there, but it just toward the end, you're like, oh my gosh. And also, my favorite artist of all time is in this, Kid Cudi. I know he's friends with Josh Hartnett and friends with M. Night. It's a very weird cameo. I love you, Cudi. I really do. I don't know. You're playing this weird, pop star yourself. Should have played yourself. Oh my gosh, it's Kid Cudi. Would have been a way better role, but he's playing this really weird, this really, dickhead pop star or musician. You're like, okay, you're kind of a dick. Like, why do we care about you? And it's a very quick 5-minute scene, but you're like, you're kind of an asshole, dude. Like, why? What was the purpose of this? So, I think the heart of this movie is definitely Josh Hartnett. Again, it's a good premise. Sounds of the Lambs said at Taylor Swift Eras Tour. Wow. Again, it is good concept, poor execution. I think both me and Nick in our Long Legs review is that a good setup. You had us there, but the way the story goes and the direction it goes, you're just like, you lost us. Like, oh man, if you kept the vibe of the first half hour, the first half of the movie, with this movie especially, I'd have been like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. It's definitely kind of like M. Night back to his roots, back to kind of his magic. But it just didn't feel like anything special or unique. Again, after that first half hour, after the concert scene, you're just like, why do I care anymore? It just feels a very generic thriller. I'm like, all right. So again, not a terrible movie. Is it his worst? No. It is very middle of the road M. Night, if you ask me. The humor was not working at all for me. There's some jokes here and there where I'm like, wow, this is not funny. And no one in the theater was laughing either. I'm like, yep, not a good sign. But again, it's an original film, original studio film especially. I got given props that he's definitely kind of pushing his boundary in terms of original filmmaking. Never always, it works sometimes. Does it always work? No. But definitely he's trying to do some more original stuff. I give him that. He definitely believes in that, the summer blockbuster or the original, studio film. I give him props for that. I really do. Because again, as someone who loves original films, he definitely knows how to kind of lure you in with good marketing, good trailers, good concepts. But he hasn't to me, has not his execution has not been good, I think, since Split, if you ask me. Knock at the Cabin, I thought was definitely better for his filmography, but in terms of Unbreakable and Split or even The Village, you're like, okay, the Village, The Visit, where I'm just like, wow, you got me involved, you got me invested. Okay, but follow through when he does. But his last few movies, I feel like I haven't been I kind of ended on okay, that's it. All right, so I give this really a solid 5 out of 10. If it's worth, I would say if you're a big M. Night fan, you love the trailers, you love kind of a horror thriller, I would say really it's a really, really, really low matinee. But I think it's definitely worth watching at home, streaming. I don't think it's worth full price. I would go on a matinee or discount Tuesday, or if you have the Regal Pass or AMC A-List or some kind of cinema pass. If you're intrigued, maybe. I don't think it's worth seeing in theaters. I think it's kind of worth watching at home on HBO or on Max. So, yeah, 5 out of 10. Again, you watch because of Josh Hartnett and the first half hour of the film. After that, you're going to be like, well, how I felt was whatever. So, yeah, I'm giving Trap a solid 5 out of 10. Alrighty, my friends. So, in my conclusion of this triple feature review roundup episode for you all this week, I'm going to end with a Neon film, which is called CUCKOO. Neon to me is the cousin of A24, very weird, very ambitious, very, very ambiguous, original filmmaking, very weird at times. A24 takes a lot of risks. I think Neon takes a lot of risks as well. Obviously, Neon had a huge hit this summer with Long Legs, a film that me and Nick, that we were ecstatic for. Oh my God, can't wait to see this movie. But then I think, as we said, the first hour you're like, okay, where are we going with this? This is good. I'm liking this. And then when it takes a turn, you're like, what? I think if Long Legs kept the vibe of Sounds of the Lambs and Seven, very Fincher-esque, it would have been oof. But the way they take kind of supernatural again, spoilers, it's been a month, but I'll keep it light spoilers. Supernatural kind of dark turn. You're like, nah, like nah, this nah, Chief, come on, man. He has in the first half, but again, so huge hit. Happy again. I love seeing original indie films like that do very well, the big audience in theaters during the summertime especially. That is awesome and so refreshing to see. So CUCKOO, I remember seeing the trailer when we saw Longlegs, and I was like, okay, this looks pretty interesting. But the trailer didn't stick with me as much. But I was hearing from like our friend Corey Seth, other TikTokers and YouTubers like, yo, this movie is bonkers. And I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't know much. And I was like, you know what? I like original filmmaking. I like Hunter Schafer. I like Dan Stevens. I'm like, you know what? Give this movie a chance. And I love supporting original independent filmmaking on the big screen. Love that. So CUCKOO, like I said, very, very ambitious, very ambiguous film like A24 and Neon Films. CUCKOO is about a 17-year-old girl is forced to move with her family to a resort where things are not as what they seem. Again, another film like Longlegs and Trap. The first half hour, I was like, this movie is awesome. I'm so invested. I'm intrigued by this. Let's go. The first half hour reminded me a lot of Stanley Kubrick. I'm like, oh man, it's like almost like The Shining a little bit. I was getting Shining vibes, the way the score, the way the music, the way like the certain camera shots were going. I was like, man, this is very Shining-esque. I'm like, I love The Shining. I love Dr. Sleep. I'm like, yo, this movie sold me. Let's go. And then the movie gets go. After the first half hour, I was like, oh, what? I just did not care about the rest of the movie after the first half hour or the first 40 minutes where I was like, wait, what? Because again, it keeps you guessing. It keeps you intrigued. I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? And then when the reveal happens, you're like, yeah, what now? You're doing what? And I just was like, I was checked out. I was like, oh, come on. Hunter Schafer, I think, is awesome in this game. She's in Euphoria. She's awesome in Euphoria. Shit, thought she was great. Hunger Games, was it about a Songbirds and Snakes? I think she's a very talented actress. Because you believe her as like, and she wants to like not be in this resort. They're in like, I think they're in Germany, I want to say. She doesn't want to be there. She's going through a tragedy of herself. She's kind of like unsure with her life and what she wants to do. She misses America. She misses her home. She misses her mom. You're like, oh man, you feel for her, and she doesn't want to be here, but it's like she's kind of forced to do this, forced to live with her dad and stepmom and stepsister, and the movie definitely takes a lot of creative risk that I was like, wow, I'm very impressed with this. And the movie reminded me a lot of like John Carpenter films as well as Mike Flanagan films and shows. So if you know those kind of movies and shows, you're like, ooh, very, very ambiguous, very, very interesting. And again, I was definitely like really very intrigued by the movie itself. But where it was going, I was like, okay, I'm keeping me guessing. I'm with this. And then towards like the reveal or the twist, you're like, wait, what? And I just was like, oh, no. This felt really convoluted. This felt really messy. But again, I would say this a lot. The performance in this really stuck out to me, whether it's Hunter Schafer and Dan Stevens. Dan Stevens, who I just loved in Abigail. Abigail, if you've seen Abigail, it's on Peacock. It's on Blu-ray, DVD, Peacock now. Watch Abigail. It is some of the most fun you'll have in a horror film this year. The movie flopping breaks my heart. That movie was so much fun to see it with the crowd on the big screen. It's an original studio film. Oh, I loved Abigail. I thought he was so good in that. Similar like this too. He's great in this film. I thought he was really good. He's very, very creepy, very mysterious, but like you want to see how his character kind of like does certain things. I thought he and Schafer had this awesome chemistry. I was like, this is great. Because again, you don't really know much about him, but like you're intrigued by the mysterious kind of like side of him. Like, okay, he's saying this to her, but why? He's doing this to this person, but why? Or he's kind of like being this way because of this way. I'm like, okay, but all that kind of goes away from me once the reveal twist happens. You're like, oh, you're doing with this now. Cinematography, awesome, top tier. Score, awesome. Using music, we thought it was really interesting, but I think both. Same issue I had with Longlegs and this is that the movie got a little too ambitious for its own good. It was like, we're going to do this. And you're like, okay, I don't know about that. Or like, we're going to do this. How about this now? It's like, oh, what? And I thought the twist was just so weird. And I'm just like, for me that is. I was like, this is kind of weird. This is not really working for me. And I wish he kind of explained really why why this was happening, or why this person was doing this, or the purpose of like, here's why. It just kind of was like, here it is, boom, and I'm like, well, that really makes no sense, and I don't really understand why this was this thing in the first place. And I was very just kind of like caught off guard, where I was like, yeah, it's not working for me. Again, I thought it was a good premise, like Trap, good premise, poor execution. And I do like seeing, original films like this. I do. And again, that's why I saw it in theaters. And even though I had a weird experience, this guy half hour into the movie, no joke, I swear, half hour into the movie, walks in. I'm like, wow, you're half hour late. He makes a lot of noise. He goes, okay, here we go. I'm not even kidding. He plugs in an air fryer. He plugs in a computer. My man takes his shoes and socks off, has his dogs fully out. If you know me or anyone, that is disgusting and very inappropriate theater behavior. But a whole ass air fryer and a computer, I'm like, my man, this is a 4 p.m. at a theater, and on a 4 or 5 p.m. on a Thursday, whatever, or what's going on here? Like, this is weird. And that to me, it was a little bit distracting. I'm like, yo, what's this guy making a whole ass meal for? And checking his AOL email in a theater, and he's like, make some yes. Like, make some weird noises. I'm like, okay, but you know what? Very memorable. I'll give him that. Yeah, this movie, the first half hour to me, I was like, oh man, I'm watching The Shining basically. I'm watching like this era of kind of like of Kubrick and Carpenter and Mike Flanagan. I'm like, this is so cool. I did like, there's a big shootout like action scene at the very end of the movie. I thought that was really well done. The score was really cool, how they used the score for that. I thought that it was like very violent at times, and I think this film was shot on 35 millimeter, which is really cool to see a film like this shot on film, because I felt like a lot of these, indie films, a lot of these kind of like low budget neon A24 films, a lot of them shoot digital because it's way cheaper. Obviously, it's more accessible for cameras and operators, but like the film grain was very cool. It reminded me of the kind of like, almost like grindhouse films back in the day, which was really cool. But again, I just really wanted the movie to kind of follow up, and it's kind of like good first half hour. But once it gets that twist, half hour, that mid reveal, you're like, to me, I was like, I'm checked out. And I wish it kind of kept the vibe of the first half hour, like, again, very Shining, very Kubrick. I'm like, oh yes, like, keep going with this. But like Longlegs, again, first half hour was good, but I gotta give it props though. Still original film on the big screen for a wide audience. So I'm giving CUCKOO really a 6 out of 10. I think we gave Longlegs a 6 out of 10 too, where I'm giving it mostly props for original filmmaking, theatrical release in the original filmmaking, good performances and good score. Again, I did love the little homage to The Shining, Kubrick, and also how I saw Carpenter and a little bit of Mike Flanagan. So if you're intrigued by those kind of movies and like horror, like thriller, like weird movies like that, I would definitely say see it in theaters. But I think it was a very small release. Didn't do as well as Longlegs did in its box office. So I think it's a very limited, smaller release. But yeah, just to me, I'm like, oh man, I wanted to like that movie too, but just again, good premise, just poor execution. So yeah, the end of August to me, I feel like I haven't seen It Ends With Us yet. I'll probably see that this week before it goes away. I'm hearing really good things with Strange Darling. If you heard a review for Alien Romulus, me, Nick, and Moses love that movie so much. So this August was kind of a bit of a hit or a miss. Again, a lot of options for sure. Are all of them winners? No. But, there are some options. I got to give it props for that. So, as we saw Deadpool and Wolverine still playing, I don't think they did Cinema Day or National Cinema Day this year. I think last year was like the $4 movie or this or the year before $3 movie. So probably because of inflation and stuff, probably not doing it this year. But there's still a lot of options out. I would say I haven't seen Borderlands. It went away from my theater, so oops. I'll probably go see Twisters one more time before it leaves. I'll probably go see Deadpool and Wolverine one more time, and definitely want to watch It Ends With Us, and definitely want to watch Strange Darling. I'm intrigued by that Blumhouse film, Afraid. That could be very goofy and very kind of dumb, or could be like good and actually pretty smart, but yeah, we'll see. But still a lot of things to kind of catch up on before the summer ends, but we are ending the summer season, unfortunately, of movies. Like I said, guys, I thought this was a good summer of movies. If you agree, don't agree, let us know in the comments. What are your thoughts? What were your favorite movies of the summer? On streaming, would you watch on streaming this year for movies and shows? I thought the summer was really kick-ass in terms of box office. I think from Fall Guy, Planet of the Apes, Furiosa, Bad Boys, Hitman, Inside Out 2, The Bike Riders, Twisters, again, everything. This was a very, very good summer of films. And to me, it reminded me a lot of the movies like that we kind of grew up on, and kind of like the summers of blockbusters, like even before COVID, I felt like. So it's really cool to see the movies kind of thriving again. And also, we had our first $200 million opening movie since, I think, No Way Home, which is almost 3 years ago, which is hard to believe. But yeah, guys, I think this was a really good summer of movies. So let us know in the comments and YouTube or Spotify, Apple, like, would you love this summer? Like, what didn't you like the summer? Or anything that you're kind of overhyped, or a little underwhelmed with? Let us know in the comments. But I hope you all enjoyed my rambling this week on this week's review roundup episode. Again, I miss doing these all for you. They're fun. Get my thoughts out. Again, right behind my thoughts and reviews of these movies. But I hope you still enjoyed my rambles and takes on these 3 very, very different films. Thank you so much, my friends. We will see you next week's episode, of course. And as always, we will see you at the movies.